Well, welcome everybody to the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum. I'm Danille Taylor. I am the director of the Art Museum. I've been at Clark Atlanta University now for 10 years in different iterations. As the Dean of Arts and Sciences for 5 years, as a faculty member teaching graduate students, and then I came into this wonderful world of art, and I'm loving it. Thank you so very much. So we have, we're calling it, this is going to be a conversation, and you all probably know, but I do think it's proper for me to read the bios that Natasha Chambliss and Krista Nelson have sent to me. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll just start having a conversation. I'll throw some lobs out there, and you ladies take it where you want to go, and we'll go back and forth. Natassha Chambliss is an advocate and champion for the arts. She is also an independent curator and community shareholder who serves on several nonprofit boards which strategically align with her values of serving others and supporting the arts. Natasha currently serves as the chairwoman of the Atlanta Printmakers Studios Board of Directors. She has proudly held this seat since 2020. She also serves on the Atlanta Art Fair's Advisory Board and as the Art Collectors Liaison. Natasha earned her Bachelor of Science and Master's of Business Administration with honors from Alverno College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Along the way, she kept art close to her heart. She comes from a strong family where she learned servant leadership early on and is consistently volunteering and giving back to her community, donating her time, talents, and treasures where they are needed the most. She and her husband are proud parents who planted roots in East Point, Georgia. Together, they are leaving a legacy of philanthropy and building an amazing art collection, the Chambliss Collection, with a focus on supporting artists with roots and connections to the American South. Krista Nelson is an Atlanta native and a 2004, I was going to say 2024, but no. The 2004 graduate of Howard University School of Law. There you go. As the child of two librarians, Krista grew up surrounded by books on Black artists and their works, but the actual collection of fine art seemed reserved only for the wealthy. Krista focused on a holistic understanding of the art world and continued her education studying art law at University College London. During the day, Krista works for Delta Airlines as the IFS Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Specialist. During her free time, she travels throughout the world visiting art fairs, museums, gallery, and artist studios to further her education and collection. Her focus is on works of emerging artists of the diaspora, with a particular interest on Atlanta artists. Krista is an advocate for the democratization of the art world and widespread arts education and engagement, particularly for Black and brown people. Please welcome our guests. So I know your bios talk about how you were exposed to the arts or came to them, but give us a little more specifics about how you became a collector or when you recognized you really were a collector.
I'm still recognizing if they're collectors. But I grew up in a family that was not familiar with art collecting. My grandmother had artwork around the house and beautiful pieces, but we didn't really have a lot in the house. So when I was young, I loved to color and draw and do, and my mother would buy coloring books all the time, and she just kept finding me going through them so quickly. So she would say, you know what, Natasha, you're gonna have to make your own coloring books. So she would bring home printing paper from work, and I started to draw and create my own coloring books, and then they recognized that there was something there for me. So I eventually went to an arts high school, Milwaukee High School of the Arts. I studied drawing, photography, sculpture. I spent most of my senior year, junior year at the Milwaukee Art Museum drawing and painting with tarps on the floor amongst the masters. And what I recognized really early on is that I did not see a lot of positive representation of Black folks and people who look like me in the works. And so my friends and I, we were artists and we were young and we were Black and we were creating, but there wasn't really anything for us on the wall in the museum, so where would we go? Where would we go? We didn't really have what we knew of as role models. But there was a Romeo Beard in my museum in Milwaukee. They had Haitian art in the museum, and there were some things that I could see. So there, we were trying to blaze our own trail. But life happened, and I got pregnant early, and I had my daughter at 17 and a half. So my mom was like, there's no career for you in art. There's no money in art. You gotta find a career or a path that's gonna allow you to take care of your family. And so along the way, I studied business. I got my master's that you talked about. I took corporate jobs. I'm still working at Home Depot in a corporate career. But as my family grew and got older, I was like, how do I do something for me? And what I found for me was reconnecting with the arts. So I started volunteering with arts organizations, the National Black Arts Festival here. I went to a couple of art exhibits, and I met the lovely Jamal Barber, who I hope we talk about this later, is how do you find artists. But I connected through the arts organizations and arts experience here in Atlanta to find friends in a community who introduced me back to the arts practice. And so I got to spend time in studios with folks like Jamel and see them working on their art. I knew that art was no longer the path for me, but I could find a way to support and invest in the arts through my friends and connect back that way. And so that's how I got started and connected. And I went to an exhibit to see Jamal's Bright Black exhibit, and then I saw him again at Johns Creek's Art Center, and we connected there, and I just knew I wanted something from him because he opened the doors for me. And so the very first piece that I collected was a wood block, a practice block that he has. And I bring it with me to any of these talks because it's something that reminded me of my son, but it could be any of my sons. It could be any of the young men that I love and call family or my friends. And so this was the piece where I had brought prints and posters and things along the way, but this was the piece that really solidified for me that I was connecting to the arts here in Atlanta in the community, and this was this piece that sparked it for me. But even then, I didn't consider myself a collector. I just knew I got something that I loved and that I could afford and that could be in our home.
Thank you so much. That's powerful.
So for me, my initial connection to art actually started with a painting in our home, a painting that my father's father did years ago, back in the late 50s. Unfortunately, my father's father passed well before I was born, passed when my father was a teenager. And there are very few photographs of him. So everything that I know about him is through stories that my family tells. But one thing that we always had in our home was this single painting of a magnolia that he made. And that was always the connection that I had to him. And my father would always tell stories about how, despite all of the challenges that my grandfather had, he always found solace in painting, and that was the way that he expressed himself. But unfortunately, there are very few of his paintings that were still around, this particular work being one of 3. So there was always that connection, and that inspired me to really have a connection to these pieces of art in our home, which again, with my parents being librarians, public school librarians, there wasn't money for actual fine art, so it was books and prints and those things that were purchased from the National Black Arts Fair when it was first being introduced in Atlanta. And growing up surrounded by particularly books helped me to understand art, or helped me to begin my understanding of art and my education of art, particularly Black art. And then as I grew older, and I was in school, I went to school in London, and I was broke. Like, nasty broke. Broke as in the only thing we did for entertainment was to ride the bus. You all familiar with those double-decker buses in London? Yeah, we would go up to the top of the double-decker bus and sit in the front window and just roll around. And I was like, oh, I haven't been on the 54 in a while. Let's see what's going on. But the one thing about London is that the museums are free. And so what do you do when you're really broke? You start exploring free options. And the museums in London are absolutely phenomenal because they are full of stolen works, but that's a whole other conversation. But that was really an opportunity for me to begin to deeply explore art from all over the world. And after that, it was over. It was done.
So professionally for you, Krista, did that deepen your study of the law of art, or art law, as you were looking at art from all over the planet across time?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And at that point, well, actually, it was interesting because at that point, my understanding of art law was really limited to, let's say, more of a transactional approach. Contracts, contracts around relationships between artists, museums, insurance issues, etc. But being exposed to the works in the museum started my mind thinking about the ethics of art and what that looks like. And at that point, there wasn't really a particular legal canon around the ethics of art and what it looks like in terms of the museum and the trading, particularly of the West and Africa, the Caribbean, brown countries, as are casually referred to in many of these spaces. But it did begin my thoughts around what art looks like for Black and brown people and the responsibilities around promotion of that art and protecting of that art.
How have you witnessed, what's your interpretation of witnessing of the burgeoning of art, particularly Black art, in Atlanta? Both of you can speak to that.
So
That's a great question.
yeah. So I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and even though I was a student and studied art, my friends and I were few folks who were actually creating and producing, but there were folks in our midst like Charlie Palmer at a young age. We had muralists that were doing art, and those were the people we looked to. And there weren't a lot of groups except for our small group. We weren't really a collective. But as I came to Atlanta, I noticed that there were pockets of artists and collectives, and we've got representation here from like the Obsidian collection. And we have like the groups at Peterson Station. And then we have the printmakers. And we've got these groups of artists. So if you have a fascination or an interest in a particular medium or style, you can connect with the community here. I didn't have it at home except for my small group of friends from high school. But when I travel now, Chicago has art collectives, and we have collectors collectives.
That's what I was wondering. They didn't even take you down to Chicago.
Man, they did not. But as I grew up, I learned, and I had to find out for myself. And even through Krista introduced me to even more travel to art fairs and things. But the more I see outside, the more I appreciate what we have here in Atlanta. The groups of artists here are uniquely positioned and talented to take over the world. We have every level of master here in Atlanta. And as I go out and I see more art and I learn more about the arts practices, everything that I've learned, I was introduced to first here. So the works that we collect focuses on Southern arts, but I have a lot of artists from Atlanta in our collection for that particular reason. It's because they are top tier and they are skilled and they are brilliant.
And I'd like to take this time to point out the necessity of collectors, particularly collectors in Atlanta, to support artists in Atlanta being able to remain in Atlanta.
That's what I was going to ask, is that there's a push for people to go to Chicago or New York?
Absolutely.
And what do artists need to survive?
Artists need money.
Right. Say that. Can you say that like 5 more times?
Need money.
Yes.
And I think as collectors, it's wonderful for us to purchase pieces, but it's even more important for us, or as important for us, to promote the artist. To promote the artist to others who will also purchase their works. To promote the artist's shows. To promote the artist in conversations, particularly where their names might not necessarily be brought up. It is our responsibility to do everything that we can to make sure that artists do not feel that they must leave Atlanta in order to have a successful career.
And we've heard that, right?
We have heard this, yes. I don't want anyone here to feel like they have to move to a New York, or they have to move to a Chicago, or they have to move any place other than right where they are. Atlanta has the talent, and we need to make sure that Atlanta has the infrastructure, Atlanta has the financing, Atlanta has the support, that the emerging community has roots here, and that it's no longer in 10, well, hopefully less than 10 years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's no longer an emerging Black artist community, it is a solid and secure Black artist community.
So where are we weak as a local community in building that from the artist to what? Right.
I think that, again,
Who's in the audience?
right, I think the people in the audience would definitely have their perspective, but I think from a collector's perspective, we need to make sure that we are supporting the next generation of collectors, because there's only so much wall space that I have.
Right.
And speak to
and
our
there's
average work. I am a Home Depot employee with a limited budget. So, but I do have a sphere of friends who also have a budget. And so,
You mean in corporate America?
in corporate America,
Or corporate
and maybe not, because some
Exactly.
people are nonprofits. It's like you can support the arts at whatever level you're at, right?
Right.
The point of us being here is you don't have to be wealthy to give back. You don't have to be wealthy
100%.
to contribute to the arts in your community. Start small, start where you are. And maybe you can't afford a $10,000 piece or a $50,000 piece, but you can probably afford a $2,000 piece or whatever. You got to start where you are. And again, the point of meeting artists, connecting with artists, understanding their practice, understanding what speaks to you, you can find the art that speaks to you at the level that you are. If you start as an emerging collector with emerging artists, you can build a relationship and support the artist's journey as they grow to be maybe that next blue chipper.
What do collectors need? If they're a spot, where else are they fitting in with galleries, collectors, museums? How does all this work together?
Collectors need education. Because collectors have the passion, but collectors may not know exactly what they're looking at. And collectors also might not understand everything that goes into creating a piece. And I think from an artist's perspective, education of not just your thoughts, but of the process is very important. Because I didn't realize until a conversation that I was having with Janelle, there's a particular paint that's very popular among artists that costs almost $100. The white. And
White's a hard.
I had absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. Or even something as simple as the various types of canvas that artists can choose to use. Collectors need to understand the details around this. Because again, it's not just about our understanding for our personal knowledge, but our understanding so that we can share this knowledge with others.
And not only the responsibility behind collecting, it's one thing to purchase the works, but like your institution here, we took a quick tour downstairs, but preserving the art, right? If you have all this work in your home, how are you protecting it, ensuring it, keeping it so that it will be around for future generations? And then also, how are you sharing it? If art comes to our homes and it never sees the light of day again, how are we sharing that artist and helping them grow and develop? How are we sharing the works of the world?
So do you loan pieces out? Have you moved to that stage yet?
Not there. Not there.
You never know. We need to know what you have.
I started my Instagram, 7 years ago with the Chambliss collection for that very reason. I met with a more mature and experienced collector, Terry Davis, who was loaning his pieces out and had traveling works from his home, who told me that, folks need to know what you have. But a lot of mature collectors that I've met in the beginning weren't sharing what they had in their homes. They were very secure and very private about what they had.
Yeah.
So it was challenging for a budding collector to know more about where to get started. So that's where the education comes in, right? And we have to talk to each other. We have to share. Like if there's a particular artist you really love and you believe in, you want other people to collect the work. You want other people to know about it. But I did it at first to show what I had. But then as it has grown, it's evolving. It's less about me, the collector, and more about the artist and promoting that, yes, I'm supporting this artist. If you like this work, you like this style, you like this practice, you want to know more, here's who the artist is. You should follow them. Go see what's on their website. Go to this exhibit for them. It's less about following me and where I'm at. It's more about the artist and promotion. But doing that too is kind of double. People know what I have from that artist. So at some point, if they were to do a retrospective or an exhibit or something on the artist, they would know which pieces I have to come to.
Do you keep your records? Who holds your records of provenance?
Okay,
and
so
all of the good stuff?
And keeping record of my work.
What happened was, but you had a tag on the back. Show the back that I was very impressed with.
So I did have a small exhibit at the Atlanta Printmaker Studio where it was showcasing some of the works.
Oh, the
And
one
so-
I saw that show. That was
Yes,
wonderful.
so anytime the work is exhibited or whatever, part of my documentation process is not just to photograph and keep track of where I purchased the work or where the work came from, because there's a massive spreadsheet and my daughter is taking pictures and doing some stuff now for something future.
She's
But
your registrar.
She is my registrar and she's good at it. But anytime I have something where the piece was exhibited or where it came from, I keep it with it and then I do a digital copy of it so you don't lose sight of it.
I confess, I have not placed everything in one document, but I'm actually going to hire Natasha's daughter to do so.
And actually, I may have to hire her too, because I have a few pieces I need to
Good at it.
My certificates and receipts and whatnot are all in a large file,
Oh, yeah,
Just-
yeah.
sitting at my house mocking me.
That's all right. Just put it in a fireproof
It's coming.
box.
But that was part of our education, wasn't it?
Correct.
Right?
I didn't, when I first
We go
started
there
collecting,
together.
I didn't think anything about documenting. So even when someone brought that to my attention, it was the struggle to try and gather all of the paperwork. But again, the education piece.
And that's what, particularly now, since it's a very contentious, there are a lot of duplications, I think, with the technology, that when donations are attempted to be made to museums, we have to check all the provenance, which is who made it, or do you have sole rights to it, when was it created, because we have to keep that in our records so that if we show it, that we're not ending up in court. And sometimes for the older pieces that we collect, historical work, there are estates that start to float out here that you don't even know about. Which, that's the one that's puzzling us right now legally.
Right to ownership.
not, or let's say copyright for images. Yeah, images, and particularly with the web, the ease with which images can be hijacked. But also just images even in some of the catalog. We have found work, and we're doing a legal thing right now that somebody took an image from another work and never even contacted us. A work we commissioned. I'm like, what? You can't do that. Yeah. So the law of it is very tricky.
About that, but I know that even with sharing on the web, like for a personal page or a collection page, there is no watermark on there right now.
And I'm wondering if we should be watermarking. What do you think?
Well,
This is something we should be all discussing.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I'm gonna
I believe in taking every protection. And if better to be overprotected, it's kind of like being overly insured. Better to be overinsured than underinsured.
All right, I get my watermark together. So I know you guys, how does a museum like this that has a history of collecting since 1942 meld into your education and thoughts about collecting?
Having conversations in salons like this, but also being open, like we briefly toured the archive today. It's something we've been wanting to do, but it is definitely being a resource for collectors where, one, we have to promote because no one knows all of the great things that you have here, even as much as you're doing right now. We still have an opportunity to get more of the word out, right? There's huge. But to say that it is open for collectors to come for free, because there are young collectors that may not have the budget yet, to learn more, to see more. Just downstairs, being down there for a few moments.
It's amazing.
We have Louis Dessart on the walls, but you've got Helen Woodruff in the files. You've got all these amazing artists that speak to us, our history, our legacies, and we want to see more, we want to learn more, but I think we just don't know where to start sometimes. So as Krista and I learn more, we're giving it back to our friends. As our friends learn more and they're traveling and they're exposed to more, they're sharing it with us. I think it's starting to happen, and it's happening more organically, but making yourselves accessible for things like this. Because I think we'll come.
And also appreciating in such a heavily digital age, there's still nothing like seeing it in person. Being able to get up close and seeing the brush strokes, being able to appreciate the shadows of an image.
That's why this Tanner blew me away, is to see the bark on the tree looks like actual bark on a tree. I was just so amazed by this piece when I really looked at it closely.
Can I have it?
Or even the regular Bailey
Yes.
that's commissioned for this space. This was made for CAUAM.
You can see this in 1,000 photographs. You can see the shadows and the light, but there is nothing like being able to come and spend time with it, and to have someone who knows a little bit more about that it was commissioned, a little bit more about Radcliffe's practice, his connection to Atlanta, like to be able to hear those things from a knowledgeable, other folks will understand the importance of maybe investing in his works. He's no longer with us, but we want to make sure that Radcliffe is solid and remembered. So to have this piece here is unique and special for us. And it's in our backyard. You don't have to travel to go see it. It's here. So people just need to know that.
Tell me about Paris Noir.
She's brought me a book back.
Oh!
I collect books as well.
Okay.
Okay, hands down, the most phenomenal museum show that I've ever seen.
Get out of here. Now you're gonna make me go to Paris even if it's for a day.
Just saying.
Oh.
Just saying.
Even flipping through the pages, again, it doesn't do it justice.
So explain to our audience what we're talking about.
So there's an exhibit at the Pompidou in Paris, Paris Noir, which is a collection of works of artists from the diaspora from 1950 to 2000. And it is a collection of paintings, prints, sculptures, just throughout the gamut. And I was just absolutely blown away. Absolutely blown away. I actually was not expecting it to be as powerful as it was. I'm so sorry. I'm being rude to y'all. I was not expecting it to be as phenomenal and as powerful and impactful as it was. So it really was, every time you would go around a corner, it was something new.
Because there are black artists that were in Paris and Europe.
Yes.
So there are brothers and sisters from the continent that were either newly there, they were mostly first generation.
Primarily first generation, but
Right,
also,
but
but
it's
also
just wonderful.
black Americans. Black Americans, yes.
Right, right. The ladies brought it there.
Yeah.
Yes, there were several,
there
there were maybe half a dozen of his works.
Yeah, we lived there. But it's, yes, so
I saw the catalog.
this opens up the understanding of how broad the black art world is. Which is why I always endeavor to share our pieces with other museums. The project A Black Planet, which I don't think they advertised as well as they could have outside of Chicago, but it is traveling to Brazil and Barcelona.
You get on another plane.
But the fascinating thing is I fought with them over the art of the Negro, the Woodruff murals. They wanted to take them down. Museums don't like to make replicas, but they wanted that so badly. They told me the only way you can get this is to do a replica. It opens the whole show.
It's a set of replicas for what we have out here.
Exactly. It's replicas, yes,
Of each one.
of each mural, 12 feet high. The interesting thing is they, well, at least in that iteration of the show, they were at eye height. So I could actually see details in the murals that I'm always having to look up to. But I will get those replicas back when it finishes traveling.
Let me look up these flags.
So I mean, I'm just can't wait till I have the murals and I can just roll them out and we can just look at them very, very close. But there's that kind of negotiation we endeavor to do with museums here at the local level because they do crave our art.
Absolutely.
You've got it.
Absolutely.
That absolutely. That's one of the things is like there are the art fairs coming up, and Atlanta had its very first art, well, not very first, but we had its first iteration of the Atlanta Art Fair.
It was fun.
It was fun. We're going to do it again, same place. But the importance is partnering with institutions to make sure that when folks travel and come here, they understand the importance of stopping here, seeing the work here, supporting here. I think we learned more this week about the retraction of funding for the universities and the museums and libraries. And so it is also important for the community and not just collectors, I don't care what you call yourself, to make sure that you are supporting the universities and museums and libraries in your backyard. Start at home first, work out abroad if you have other things that you're passionate about. Right. But connect with folks like yourself and find out what you need during these difficult times.
What did Jamel say?
Money. But you have to find out, and for those of us who are able to purchase and support, you have to contribute what you can when you can.
And those dollars add up, and that support means that we'll still have this institution, we'll still have these works to come and visit, and that my grandchildren will be able to come and see and enjoy and experience what I love about being here. So money matters, and when you have it, you have to share it.
But also,
That's what I think.
and I think, so yes, money is paramount, but also when I'm engaging with young collectors, particularly those who are just graduating from university or just getting started, I tell them their presence is also a contribution.
Your presence and your network is also capital.
Absolutely.
Right.
Even
We
if you
keep
don't
track
have the
of
fund.
every time somebody walks in here. So if I have an attendance issue, we can pull out the numbers because they think we're sitting over here and no one comes in. That's not the truth. So I mean, you're right. There are all kinds of ways. And what we were speaking about a little earlier, and you know, I hadn't thought about it, but it's the Institute of Museums and Library Services. That's IMLS. A kind of obscure agency of the government, but they could have been supporting the Auburn Research Library. They would do infrastructure kind of grants that spoke specifically to the needs of libraries and specifically to the needs of museums. Nobody else was supporting those kinds of ventures in a systemic and very supportive way. So we got our registrar through that grant. I had just applied for a museum educator. I was frothing at the mouth for that because that would, no, but it would give me the outreach person that the four of us just can't do enough to do that. But all of that was shut down. And it's not clear to even people that have grants that are ongoing, can they still spend that money? Because they can ask to claw it back. So that's very worrisome. And like I'm saying, the libraries too, they are on shutting out the Black presence in print and visually. It is getting dark.
And I'm glad that you brought up the orange elephant in the room.
He's not in my room. The
Because
specter.
as collectors, we are part of the arts community, and we are culture keepers. And particularly in this environment, our responsibility is even more heightened. We have to make sure that we are uber committed to being able to make sure that nothing falls to the wayside.
And I'm afraid what he's going to, that he may be coming after HBCUs.
Absolutely.
That's
I have no doubt.
I have no doubt that he's going to try and come after them in some kind of way. Right, exactly. So that's very troubling. But what I do know with artists, and I don't think I'm overstepping, it doesn't matter what's going on around, you will express it. So we need to, as collectors, museums, galleries, support that and help you document and continue to document how you're processing this time and place. That's the key thing with Art Historic, is they document it, whether it's just the Black Spring or something that is for a Black family in times when you're saying that the Black family doesn't exist. You know, these are important things that the artists do from the heart of the Black experience and their own personal experience, and it doesn't, you're not, I never believe that there is any ideology that you have to follow. You be true to yourself, your culture, and what you need to express, because you do stuff we can't do. We can't paint. Well, it won't be anything anybody wants.
My mama wants it in the refrigerator.
I'll stop pitching on that, but I think that's...
So look, I've taken classes so I can spend time with the artist and learn more and reconnect.
Yes.
But these are the small things that we can do to make sure that our future is secure, right? That our history is documented and that there is something for the future generations.
Look at that Betty Andrews.
Yes.
You don't have to put the camera in there, but I mean, he's always mocking something. I love his his stuff because he just makes fun. Who are people looking at? And they'll be voyeur. I mean, this is a ridiculous sculpture there. It's ridiculous. But they're all there looking, the specter of exploitation of the female body. I mean, it's just hilarious.
Exactly. And again, it's all of it's under attack right now.
Absolutely.
So our collections will hold even more
Value. It really will.
in the future because we decided to keep and protect and preserve.
And you all just keep creating.
Yes, and we're going to keep supporting this as
Yes.
much as we can. So, and again, support comes in so many ways. Sometimes it's not buying art. Sometimes it's supporting an artist's studio rent and making sure they can eat tomorrow. It's like we have to listen to our community to see what they need and not assume, right? Not put our own spin on it. We need to ask and we need to listen.
Absolutely. Anything else that you would like to share with all of us? I've got some ideas that we'll talk about later.
I just would love to make sure that we have more conversations like this with other voices. Like, we're a fun set of voices, I think we are. We're traveling, we're learning, we're seeing more, we're experiencing more. And we're still at the beginning of our journeys, right? But there are some folks who have more tenure that will have some knowledge and things that they can bring to these conversations, and I would come and I would listen. So it's nice to hear from different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Because I still, every day, I've only been collecting aggressively for about 4 years now. And I still very much feel like I'm a student. So every day is an opportunity to learn. Every day is an opportunity to see something new. Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm constantly looking for a way to continue to grow my understanding of different styles, of different artists, of art history, all of that. So, yeah, every day I'm just eat it up.
We'll continue to grow together.
Yes.
This will not be the last collector salon. This exhibit does come down on May 3rd. Yes. But the wonderful intervisions that we're so fortunate to have Janelle Wright participate as a curator, working with Clark Brown, our in-house curator. I just think I'm just so pleased with how everyone has reacted. The artists may not understand it, but I was a little leery about abstraction and how a broader audience would embrace it. And it's been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal, and we deeply appreciate it. We learn, we grow, and we're going to keep evolving as long as we have the doors open.
And we have to make sure the doors stay open.
Absolutely. We're committed. Well, thank you for coming and spending your time this afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? I'm sorry. I know Janelle always needs to say something.
Who's first?
Well, I think they can hear you. They're closer to the microphone.
Say it out loud.
Sure.
Natasha, you talked about our responsibility as collectors for bringing our networks in, and I'm definitely always doing that. How do you convince your friends and colleagues and networks to eventually buy something?
I keep bringing them with me, and then at some point you have to be very candid and talk about cost of things. A lot of people get really intimidated by the cost of art, and I was the same way. You have to think back, how did you get started, right? What was your experience? When I went to Jamal's exhibit, I've used this as an example because the pieces on the wall were priced appropriately for the show, but they were more than I had ever seen or spent on a piece of work myself. So the reason I ended up with this lovely block, it was the practice block he was working on. He was working on it on Instagram, And I reached out to him and we talked about it, and it was a very reasonable number for me and I could do it, but it was still the most that I had spent on a piece ever. So you have to be candid with your friends and you have to talk about what things cost, and you have to talk about payment plans.
I was
and
about to say, and
Yes.
I don't realize there are payment plans.
Yeah, and you have to talk about relationships with the galleries. You have to take them with you, invite them to things. If you go on a studio visit, invite them to studio visits. When you go to galleries, invite them to galleries, invite them to talks, so they understand how to get started. But you have to be candid. You cannot sugarcoat it, because people will be like, that piece costs X, Y, Z dollars, and why does it cost so much? But if they've had a studio visit, they see, like Krista said, how much the paint costs, how much the canvas costs, how much time a printmaker puts into wood blocking and printing, and how much practice goes into that. Then they begin to understand why it costs so much, and then you tell them your story of how you started over time. I didn't just get to 100 pieces. It took a long time, and it took payment plans, and it took partnering with folks to get there.
Sometimes you have to start with posters.
And sometimes you do.
You do. You start with posters and get them into putting a frame on it and getting used and just living with art. That's what you have to learn how to do, is live with art, and how nice it is to see that when you go home, in whatever room you put it in. And as they start to do that, you know, where's their entry point? A $10 poster, of course, can cost you $50, $60, $70 to frame, but that's okay.
Not if you go to Mr. Shaw.
You? I just wanted to add on the payment plan thing, is I think that oftentimes people are intimidated by the idea of payments, or they don't know to ask for a payment, and I just want to
Do
elaborate
it on their credit cards.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, I just want to elaborate, like, the artist really even sometimes appreciates the payments more than you paying outright, is because I know that I have $500 coming this month, next month, the month after. I know that $500 is going to be spent next month because I haven't even got to it yet. So, like, having, you know, when you're simply thinking, okay, well, I need to buy these supplies, or I need to pay for diapers, or I need to, you know, make sure that something's happening. Like, even having a payment, knowing, okay, well, I got $1,000 coming next month. That adds some relief. Now I can go into the studio and not have to worry about next month. I can, so like, I was telling someone yesterday, like, if I had a $2,000 painting and someone to pay me 10 months for $1,000, I'm down. You know, you may sit there and think, well, you know, I want that $10,000. No, I'm okay with $1,000 a month, because I know that I have $1,000 a month coming in, and I know that I can start adding things to that. I can, like, plan a trip to Houston to go to the Joel River Street exhibition, or plan a trip to New York to see the Jack Whitney exhibition. And even if it's just flying in, I'm gonna need that extra money for Delta. So I'm gonna need that little extra money. So, like, knowing that I have that to bop in the city and bop out, like, so it's okay. We're often grateful for a payment. So don't feel intimidated by payments.
Did you have a question?
And I would say, literally, this was the conversation that I was having with someone as I was driving over today. That she was asking about how to get started collecting, and the financial piece was very intimidating for her, and there was a discussion about payment plans. And she was asking, well, isn't that insulting to ask the artist about a payment plan? I was like, absolutely not.
Don't assume, ask.
Don't assume, ask. Absolutely, and we went through the same conversation about having a known, steady income. So again, it's that, again, education around the details of collecting art. That's incredibly important.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for this panel. This is amazing. And I wanted to just piggyback a little bit on what you guys were saying, what Janelle was saying. And in terms of, you know, like, I'm an artist. It's like being an artist and being in Atlanta. I'm originally from New York. I have conversations with Brad Pitt to put in the face about people asking him to move to New York and why he wanted to stay in Atlanta. I've heard that, oh, you should move back to New York. Atlanta is an amazing place, and one of the things that I love about Atlanta is all the things that are lovely about Atlanta, CAUAM, Morehouse, Spelman, all the things and all the fabulous things that happen in Atlanta. But I would love for you all to speak to a little bit more about raising the cultural IQ of the greater Atlanta community, because the money is here. You know, it's like I've really never experienced a place. I travel a lot, and that's prevalent in the ideas of Black people in Atlanta. You know, and growing up in Atlanta, I knew people that collected art, but they were a very small community. Because again, that seemed like something that only those people over there did. But now with social media, and especially younger people seeing the opportunities for art that are out there, and seeing what artists are putting out, and that this is an actual commodity, that there is now that hunger for it and that desire to find out more about it. So again, it comes back down to the education piece. Because knowing that art is out there is different than knowing what that means and how to actually go about understanding, purchasing, etc. So again, around the education piece of what art is and the various forms, and kind of training people's eye. And again, the piece around how to acquire art, particularly if you have the mindset that I have to have $10,000 in hand.
And there's, I don't want it to be misunderstood that Atlanta has been collecting art long before we got here. There are the Larry and Brenda Thompson. There's legacy collectors here, but it is one of those things where it's like no one was sharing. There are collectors groups where they talked amongst themselves. It's for us to learn from, us to learn from what worked for them, but also us to change the narrative and be more vocal and more open and more supportive. And there's always gonna be folks that, there is something secure, something that's nurturing about protecting what you have, but this is different. If you look at it with a different eye, as a higher calling, higher purpose to support, you'll let go of that. I don't care if you know what I have. I'm not doing it for that. But there are collectors that have been here grinding, supporting for years, and they are the ones who have sustained some of the artists long before we got here. So we just have to maybe tap into them and make sure that they know there's a new group. But then we have to own the responsibility as the emerging collectors to support emerging artists.
And I would say you're right, and understanding that the bling has taken hold of the community. It has been part of the popular culture for quite a period of time, and Atlanta was a real player in that. And people were attracted to Atlanta because of that. And I don't want to be disparaging, but sometimes when I first came here, this was years and years even before I moved, it felt like a Hollywood set with nothing behind the door. I know. And I think so it can behoove us to deepen, and maybe this moment is the time to understand what fills us up is art. All kinds of art. Read a novel. Sit with a painting with music behind it. What kind of environment is that? You don't care what's going on outside. So we really have to deepen our spiritual roots through the arts, that all people and children deserve. And it takes education to get it there. It takes embracing them. And because all the stuff, how much stuff can you buy after a while? It's just stuff. And so we're working against popular culture. And just understand, that's where we are. And we just have to kick deep in and find those. You don't always convert everybody. You learn that as an educator. You don't touch everybody in that classroom at the moment you're teaching. You're planting seeds. And seeds bloom in different people at different times. Because humans are a process. So that's what I'm kind of adding there. So that was important.
I just wanted to add one more thing before I pass the mic, but myself and Dr. Taylor and Janelle have been having these conversations to that question about where it starts and starting with the students here because, you know, everybody's goal is I'm going to get the degree, I'm going to get the job, I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to spend it on the fancy car and the big house and vacations and all the things, but trying to impress upon them that this is also something that is important in a space that belongs to them, because we have, at this point, too many students that come in and it's their junior, senior year, and they're like, this is my first time ever coming into this space.
Yes.
Which is a problem that we are trying to rectify. Like you said, going against popular culture, but also sometimes what the university seems as things that are more important that are things that are bringing in more money, but bringing it to them in some form or fashion in their, you know, like first year curriculum when they come in, even if it's just an art appreciation class or like a seminar where you come in for a tour, a brief tour, so that you know that this is your space and this is your community and something that you should invest in the future. Or even just as we had, you know, the Girl Scouts here earlier this morning, bringing your small children, even if they, you know, run through the gallery, but at least so they can be accustomed to being in the space and experience it, so they have that level of exposure so that even when they come to college, or even if they don't, it's not their first time coming into the space.
My name is Holton St. Clair Hibbert. I'm an artist, president of the Obsidian Collective, stirring the arts in the city, gathering the community together to do all these things you guys have mentioned. I have a two-part question for the collectors and for the museum director. For the collectors, my first collector was Mike Harris, and you know, he shared something very poignant with me about his era of collector, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. He shared with me that at that time what they would do is they would get behind an artist, and everyone in that collector's group would support that artist. They would buy a piece of that artist, lift that artist up, so now that artist's name is being taken to another level, and everyone shares in that gain. Not just the artist, but the collectors. Now you're raising the value of this artist and everybody wins. So my question to you, how do you guys see that, or do you see that taking effect in the now, right? Because for me, that makes perfect sense. It's like, you know, someone investing in stock, right? You put more money into the stock, the company's able to put that money towards this, and now the stock goes up. Second part of that question, in this era that we're in where money is being taken away, because we're dependent on used to being dependent on government grants and such, we're also in the era of black billionaires. So are we shifting our thought to look at and approach these black billionaires and share with them the ideas of supporting, the importance of supporting these spaces as opposed to depending on the government that doesn't really care in the first place? So those are my two questions.
Well said.
Oh, you want me to go first?
I think you should have a balanced portfolio of how you seek resources. We didn't get a lot of federal money, but it hit right at the right time, and I thought that we had two grants. One allowed us to do a collections assessment report. That CAPS report was really important, and Marita Poole got that grant. And it is a guideline for how we advocate for better protecting the collection. We could say, look, the fire system in the collection is the wrong kind. This door is not strong enough. Those kinds of things. And then the registrar, and I was just, you know, I'll figure out something with the museum educator. We'll figure something out. Often, billionaires don't tend to think, and this is, you know, they'll go to the high.
Right. Exactly.
They like that social visibility, and I'm not just, and they may not know about us. And I just have to, it's very difficult if you're having to spend 95% of my time on the day-to-day operations. And I don't mean minor day-to-day operations. I mean major operations, making sure everything churns properly, because I'm aware of time. I don't think, to me it's like theater. When you say you're gonna open, you better be ready to open. We have deadlines to hit. I'm trying to make sure my staff has professional development. We were doing all kinds of things so they could present papers at the Association of Academic Museums. And also at the, so we play in a playground with other museums that we need to be at their caliber as well, which helps everybody else when things are exhibited here. Others know about that. That's the kind of ecosystem that museums play, is the galleries and the collectors begin to collect it. When you hit your pieces, hit a museum, your collection is then elevated. Your eye for collecting. So this exhibit here, we have private collectors that have donated to the show, which is an important part of it. We need to have done a catalog. We just ran out of time and resources. But that publishing component is very important as well. And so we're kind of aware of what our responsibility is to the whole artistic endeavor of education, and there's different ways. And too often, as we work with students, everybody just wants to use the internet. You're not going to find a lot of this. It's only gives you some notion. You need to go to the library, you need to look at the catalogs, you may need to walk into a gallery or a museum. And I had one graduate student, I felt like we broke through. She came, looked at a catalog that we were the only ones who had to do a paper, and I said, you need to go up to Birmingham because the John Roden show is still up. If you're going to do a paper on Roden, go see that exhibition. That brother was all over the place. He was fascinating as a sculptor. I say all that, and other avenues don't. I am trying to put together our advisory group, because development, particularly for someone at the billionaire level, the millionaire, there's a certain way in which you raise money with them. And you need someone that has that expertise. Fundraising is not just popping out. There is a skill and things that go with that. I do a lot of things. That one I'm learning, but that becomes a lot for me to have to do if other entities are not working with me.
Well, I wasn't.
No, and you're not indicting me.
I'm not for sure, but I just think that, you know, in this era, this is a place of education. Like, there should be some. I'm just making a assumption.
Sure.
I feel like there should be some kind of grooming for that role.
Oh, yeah.
Someone to be that in-between person to talk to, like you said, it's still educated. This is the billionaires, don't mean they know what to buy.
That's what you really need.
They know where to spend their money.
And I will tell you, that's where a really trained development officer has there are certain tools of wealth gathering, and they can look in the, I don't know where they get all that data from, but they pull that data about wealth. They pull that data about who gives to institutions. And it can be a shot in the dark without systematically using that data. I'm trying to work on that piece too. Who are the millionaires? They don't have to be, they're not blinging down the street necessarily.
Because if you look at something like a Shark Tank, right? That's set up to billionaires look at your idea and decide if they're going to give your idea money so that they can profit or help you.
I leave that ideation to you, but keeping this running is a lot.
But if they're looking at, if you're feeding Shark Tank ideas for a product, why can't we switch? Here's some ideas for invest your money in an institution, something that's going to be around way longer than this product. These things, that's what my point.
We need to talk and see if we have, and share those kinds of ideas and see how it's viable and then what time and effort you're willing to put in to help make that happen.
Yes, sure.
That'll be the other part. It's not just the money that you would give, but the time.
Redirecting that narrative.
Yeah, because that's important. That's fair.
Yeah, and when I acknowledge some of the collectors that existed, Michael is one of those people, and sharing that and the idea, I've heard that too, getting behind a particular artist and do that. So some of you know and some of you don't, but there are collector pockets where we're in conversation. We're trying to figure out what that looks like. There's collectors chats and there's collectors groups, and when we hear of an event, we promote and share on our socials, and we share it in our group chats and our conversations when you guys are having events or openings or salons. So we haven't particularly gotten to the point of getting behind a particular artist, but I think that's an evolution of what we need to do. And we need to invest and then share, because everybody has that one artist or those couple of artists that they would love for us to get behind. So I feel like you have some of us in the room, we're listening, and we definitely are open to that sort of investment and support. I've had conversations with other artists like yourself and Jamel about what that looks like and what it means. Because if a couple of collectors just put a few $100s in a pool and decided that we're going to, over this period of time, get behind this artist so that they can thrive and they can grow, and then it moves to the next artist and it moves to the next artist. We've just got to figure out our method for doing it. But we're open.
I'll probably need a microphone. The main thing that I guess if my colleague was talking, we talk all the time. I think it's a deeper rooted problem of us playing in the sandbox altogether, which we've had from the beginning. And I think that if we learn to not use the word collective, but to live the collective and move as a collective from every social economical run, because now the dynamics in our country is changing. So we're going to be forced to play together like never before. So it's time for us to play a little different and not listen to the shark feeding frenzy. This is a social, cultural thing we're talking about. It doesn't have anything to do with the museums and the schools. We're talking about the black diaspora across the board.
Right.
How we deal with each other. Because just like I've seen, I was in the music industry, you see people and they take one, and then we all admire that one.
Yes.
As there's no more. But we have to start realizing that we have to give opportunity. That's what our collective is about. It's about speaking a narrative. I learned something and I'll tone it after this. There's one thing I've been learning over the years. I've been doing this about 36 years. And everybody chases the fame and the adulation, which is great, but as an artist, I'm chasing my work, number two. But also I'm learning that why since the 17th or 18th century, why were people collecting art? Why we're doing it? Millionaires collect art. They all don't love art, but they realize one thing: it's money in the bank. It's a lot safer than the stock market. So when you have some art and you insure that art in your home, make sure your art is insured. We have to understand that it is money. If you want to understand the plain principle of I insure my art, if I need to have some money, oh, you will need a loan. Well, I have $100,000 worth of art. Now it becomes viable in your portfolio financially. So there's a lot of different stuff behind, but first we got to learn to play together. We got to have respect for each other. Because a lot of times, I've been in Atlanta a long time, and they've got certain artists that, they're a certain way, and we don't play. So my whole thing is let's play it together. Let's support the college. Let's support each other.
Support each other.
on a cultural level, not the art is just one platform, because we're talking about businessmen, entrepreneurs, inventors, but we don't support that. We only learn after the fact. Now we're going to be forced to learn in the midst of. So that's my 2 cents.
I think we're on the precipice of it. I think that we're seeing it. We're starting to see more and more of it. And I'm very hopeful because here in Atlanta, where I've seen most of the artists that I know have introduced me to other artists.
Yeah.
I've met and I've been exposed to new and emerging artists and even more experienced artists because of you all. So I think that it's starting, and we just have to keep each one teach one, each one reach one. You know, we've got to keep spreading it, sharing it, so that it grows and it becomes more. We're here. We just got to keep pushing it forward.
We have no choice now.
Exactly.
As Sherlock Holmes always said, the game is afoot. So we can play around and pontificate if we like. But that's not going to help us with that one individual that gets on these walls or sells them big things. It's not going to help the collective. We have to move as a collective culturally.
Yeah. And we're trying to move more as collectives, even with HBCU museums.
Yeah.
I'm in communication across the board with quite a few of the museum directors and some of the larger institutions. So they're going after the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We have a partnership with them. We're in a consortium with them. The first time they've done that, any major museum has done that. That is threat.
Yeah, definitely.
And everybody pray for Lonnie Bunch, because if anybody knows how to navigate that madness in DC, it will be Lonnie Bunch.
He's a good guy.
Solid.
Well, just one thing before we end it. I want to make sure that everyone knows to go see Karen's show over at Spelman, since you're already in the area, to go see that, of course. And I wanted to say thank you for all the programming that we've done around this exhibition. It was truly a gift to be able to participate with you and Clark and Shaquem. What did you say?
Shaquem was great.
Yes, I would say Shaquem. And his Coochie sweater. And I just, I'm so incredibly grateful because it's one thing to be an artist, but we also are more, as you would say, we're inventors, but we're also theorists, right? And we are educators, right? So to be able to create this exhibition to educate, thank you so much.
Thank you all. You know, you already know that having you guys here means a lot, but it's these conversations, it's this level of support. Like every time Hope